I want to thank those who are here supporting Senate Bill 167, and I want to thank Senator Barry Loudermilk, one of our co-sponsors of the bill, for being with us today. As most of you know, it's taken a lot of work by many people, including some of you standing in this room, to get to the point where we're ready to present this bill to the Education Committee. To give our reasons why the state of Georgia should do everything in its power to release itself from the commitment of the Common Core and the PARC, which is the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. And the reason that I'm convinced that we must do this is because of what I'm hearing from you, our parents, our teachers, school superintendents, from experts in the field of education who clearly know what they're talking about and understand the faults and the dangers of this program. Now, I'm sure that the previous administration had the best of intentions when it applied for the Race to the Top grant, but the lack of the accountability to parents and taxpayers and teachers in this state has simply been stunning. First of all, there's been no thorough cost analysis of what this is going to cost the state from these unfunded mandates. No one has ever answered the long-term cost of implementing the Common Core. We're just now finding out that the cost to implement the PARC will cost this state an additional $30 million a year. That was never vetted and discussed or disclosed when we went into this program. Secondly, allowing a consortium of states to work with nonprofits and other unaccountable parties to develop our standards without open public oversight is simply untenable in a free country, especially considering that Georgia taxpayers support K through 12 education with $13 billion of hard-earned money every year. Georgia needs a transparent, democratic process, a developing curriculum standards, and a means to ensure more direct accountability at the local level, not groups in Washington, D.C. We will be presenting this afternoon some testimony of some very important people, and I'd like to take a moment and introduce them to you, and I'll invite them to, once I finish introducing them, to say a few words to you, and then we'll open it up for questions. First, our first speaker will be Ms. Jane Robbins. She's a citizen of Georgia, a Harvard-trained attorney, and a senior fellow with the Americans Principles Project. Many of you probably recognize Jane as the face on the video, Stop the National Core Power Grab, Reclaim Local Control of Education. Then here is Dr. Sandra Stotsky. She is most likely the nation's leading expert on the English language arts standards. She served as a member of the Common Core Validation Committee, but refused to sign the standards. She has served as a senior associate commissioner in the Massachusetts Department of Education and is the recently retired professor of education reform, 21st century chair in teacher quality at the University of Arkansas. Then we have Mr. Zev Werman. He's a visiting scholar at the Hoover Institution and former senior advisor at the Office of Planning, Evaluation, and Policy Development in the U.S. Department of Education. Throughout the development of the Common Core standards in 2009 and 2010, he analyzed the mathematical drafts for the state of California. I believe you'll find his comments very interesting. Then we have Dr. Jim Arnold. He's a seasoned educator who's been a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and now serves as a superintendent of the Pelham City Schools here in Georgia. Then Ms. Tish Strange, who is an accountant and who comes from a family of educators and married into a family of educators. She studied accounting at Kennesaw State University, graduated in 2001 with a bachelor's in business administration. Today, she'll be conveying the concerns of many parents whom I've heard from about the unfortunate consequences of this program. And finally, we'll have Ms. Judy Kraft, who's of Norcross, who's a former field director for the Georgia Christian Alliance and current co-chair of the Civic and Moral Concerns Ministry at First Redeemer Church in Cumming. She's a grandmother, citizen, and former reading specialist. She earned her master's in reading at Georgia State University and worked as a reading specialist for elementary grade students in DeKalb County. Why don't we open it up and ask each of you to make a statement, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Robbins. In 2010, some officials in the state committed Georgia to a radical restructuring of education in this country, which involves setting standards, drafting standards by experts in Washington, and then having the federal government enforce those standards on the states. That's what happened. It was done without notifying, much less consulting, parents or teachers or taxpayers or the legislature. And so until recently, most legislators didn't even know this had happened. Well, it has happened, but now we're starting to figure out what has happened. Now the word is getting out, and people are starting to unwrap this and see exactly what happened. And what we realize is that it is a complete perversion of our Constitution. The Constitution leaves education in the hands of the states. We are backing Senator Ligon's bill because that would restore the constitutional balance. This was a deficient process that resulted in mediocre standards. We can do better than this. We don't have to settle for Common Core, and we don't have to settle for letting somebody else make our decisions for us.
But I'd like to pick up on the point that Jane Robbins just made about the process. I was not only in the Department of Education in Massachusetts in charge of developing all of our K-12 standards, so I know about the civic process, the procedures to use for the development of standards at the state level, but I have also been very active in my own home community all my life, League of Women Voters, elected library trustee, and a town meeting member, 2 elected offices in my home community, and know all about such things as minutes of meetings, summaries, motions, and how to make sure that one lets the public know what is going on. And I was on Common Core's validation committee, and no matter what I tried to do to find out what was happening behind the scenes, what they were doing with the critiques that I was sending them regularly of the English language arts standards, my specialty, I never got any answers back. Unfortunately, the Gates Foundation had chosen the people it wanted to be on the standards writing committee, and they were not looking as if they were going to be responsive to any criticisms coming from even the validation committee, which had been charged with creating critiques and interacting with the particular people who were writing standards. So this was a very much behind-the-scenes operation with unresponsive people and no opportunity to even find out what the critiques were that this committee had, because we couldn't get a hold of those either. So I was then one of the 5 people on this validation committee who refused to sign off because I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. And it was unacceptable from a civic point of view as well as from the actual product.
And I reviewed the standards intensively over a long period of time. I find them mediocre, not awful, not great, mediocre, much below what international competitors do. Worse, large chunks of these mass standards are experimental without any evidence of success. So we have rather detailed standard imposed on the whole country without experimentation, without evidence of success, but they are claimed to be career and college ready. The truth is, we don't even know if there is such a test that can do both career and college ready. The National Assessment Governing Board, the people in charge of the NAEP standard, actually had a technical committee investigate this question, if there is such a test that can be both career and college ready, just 2-3 years ago, no more, 4 or 5 by now. The answer came back, no, we don't know. We have to investigate it and research it. Yet they were declared career and college ready. I also look at the cost of the testing. And if you choose to do a paper and pencil route, it will cost you about 5 times what you pay today. If you decide to go for the way that a new assessment is supposed to be administered, computer-based, it will cost you about 10 times what you pay today. So instead of about $8 per person, you will pay about $80 per person. I wish you good luck.
We are extremely concerned about this. Now, I will tell you that my statements and my position is not an official position of the Board of Education, but we have discussed this at great length. In Pelham, if we were to test all our students based on the figures that I've seen with the park testing coming in 2014-15, we're looking at a little over $45,000 per year. That's a teacher for us. And I don't see a pot of money from the legislature coming to pay for this testing. The governor said in a meeting with the senator a couple of weeks ago, there will be no money forthcoming to pay for this testing. I don't see any DOE money available for this. So where's the other pot? Local is what I'm thinking. We don't have it. We just don't have it. And I'll be quite honest with you, I'm also concerned about the lack of an appeals process for revisions to Common Core. There is none. Right now, if we want to appeal something in Pelham, we can talk to our local board. We can talk to the Georgia Department of Education. But who are we going to talk to if we want to appeal a standard with Common Core? Call the National Governors Association? I don't see it happening.
Strange, and I'm here representing parents. I'm a frustrated parent going through this Common Core standards and on a daily basis working with homework that I should be able to help my daughter with. I've been an accountant for 12 years. I shouldn't have problem multiplying fractions, but I do because of these Common Cores. I'm frustrated with it. I sent the senator an email just thanking him for introducing the bill, and here I am.
I've been studying this for about the last 9 months, and I would have found that a program that promises rigor is exactly the opposite. For example, the 20 most recommended reading books in the high school now are written at 7th grade reading level or less. And in math, right now our children are having algebra in the 8th grade. That will move to 9th grade, which means that those who are mathematically gifted will not be able to take pre-calculus and calculus and prepare themselves for college. So I think that this is something that we really need to let parents know. Thank you.